All right, so back to 2014. I have a little bit of a hurt voice 'cause I had a cold. But in 2014, also was going on, like I said, if my parents would have just talked to me, everything would have been fine. Like I said, my whole life, my dad did everything with me, did basketball with me all the time, did every night before we'd go to sleep, I would take off my clothes and I would take off my socks and I'd say he shoots and my dad would catch it and he'd say he scores and then I'd take off my other sock and I'd say he shoots and then my dad would catch it, he scores. We have all these rituals like that and everything was based around basketball. But like I said, I think that my dad thinks that I just started to suck, and he thinks my mom thinks that I just started getting a mental illness or something, and they don't know what happened, but they don't know that the shoot away machine is what messed up my game. It messed up my shot, and if it wasn't for that, none of the bad stuff would have happened. And it really did screw things up, but I'll get to that more later. But so at this point in 2014, and it really is true, and I can go into details about. I can show like if when I started shooting with the shooting machine, I would pick the ball off the rack. Where I practice, I'd pick the ball off the rack like running straight forward and shooting. And I started doing that in the game, like I was picking the ball off the rack, like running straight forward and shooting. And no good shooters do that. No good shooters do that. And I can go into specific detail about what it was picking the ball off of the rack that messed up my shot and how it messed up my shot and how it made my feet wrong and how. But my dad didn't know that. I didn't know that. So, everything got distorted. And so anyways, back to the 2014. So at this point, I'm trying to talk to my mom and dad. And, at this point, they, like I said, my parents, my family forced me into the first psych ward, where I described how I was driving with my aunt, and then my aunt called me a loser. I pulled the keys out of her car. She called the police. The police came, and my aunt told them that I had schizophrenia, even though I'd never been diagnosed. So they took me to the psych ward, but the psych ward examined me for a week. They said the doctor said I did not have schizophrenia, but he said it's possible that I had bipolar disorder. But he didn't know. He never studied me before. So they studied me for a week. They kept me there for a week. And after a week, they told my mom and dad, I do not have a mental illness. They said that I had family problems. Now, this is what my grandpa said too. My grandpa, has a PhD in psychology, told my mom and dad, he said, Ryan does not have mental illness, and he doesn't have schizophrenia, he doesn't have bipolar disorder, he doesn't have any mental illness. But my mom and dad thought that he was just crazy. They were like, well, you're not really a real psychologist. You're just you're a spiritual psychologist. You're crazy yourself. But and I think that my grandpa made it worse because my grandpa was like, well, Ryan's not crazy. He's like his uncle. And my uncle is a little bit crazy. So then my mom and dad were like, oh, no, yeah, well, he's definitely crazy. Yeah, Ryan's definitely crazy. So I didn't believe my grandpa. But then this psychiatrist who has a PhD, probably in psychiatry, PhD, he's working at a psych ward. He talked to my mom and dad, and he told them he doesn't have a mental illness, but they didn't believe him. So they let me out of the psych ward, and that was a long story. It was kind of a crazy story, but I'm not going to get into that in this story. So, but they let me out of the psych ward, and then they told my mom I didn't have a mental illness. They said I had family problems. So I'm trying to talk to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, can you please give me a place to stay? Now my mom's saying, no, I'll give you a place to stay once you tell the doctors the truth about the Quadrant model and all that stuff, and once you start taking medicine, then I'll give you a place to stay. Now, the same thing I described happened in high school with the shoot-away machine, with my shot. My shot got messed up, and I was trying to fix it with my dad, and there was a lot of chaos going on. And, and my dad had helped me my whole life. My dad shot with me my whole life. And that was the reason why I was a great shooter, was because my dad always told me, like, stay sideways. And if there was ever any problem with my shot, he would fix it. But there was never any serious problems with my shot. That was the thing, because I was shooting automatically, and I was automatically doing what was perfect. And I'm not going to go into details about what that is. I don't want to make good shooters stink, but I could go into details about it. But, after the shooting machine, then my shot really got distorted, and my dad didn't know how to fix it. And in fact, he told me to do the exact wrong thing after the shoot away machine had distorted my shot. Now, he didn't even know the shoot away machine had distorted my shot. I didn't know either. So I kept on practicing on the shoot away machine. And he thought there was something wrong with me. But he told me to do the exact wrong thing. So, but my point is, like, so that was a problem then. And then my mom was like, and then we started fighting because my dad was like, okay, my dad would get frustrated. And you get frustrated my whole life with this type of stuff. If I was shooting bad. So he was just like, he'd get frustrated and he'd stop shooting with me. And I'd be like, Dad, I need help. I need help fixing my shot. I didn't know how to fix my shot, and I didn't know the shoot away was the problem. So this is when the difficulty occurred. And then my dad be like, no, I give up. You suck now. I described this whole story. And then that's when the abuse started to happen. And then my mom said, well, if you want to stay in the house, Ryan, you have to start taking medicine. Well, my mom started doing the same thing now. She's like, I'll give you a place to stay, but you have to start taking medicine. And I'm like, Mom, I don't have a mental illness. The doctor said I don't have a mental illness. I don't need to take medicine. My mom was like, nope, you lied to the doctor. You tricked the doctor. Well, the doctor said that you can't trick a doctor. They said that if you have a mental illness, you can't hide it. So anyways, then my mom was like, well, nope. But like I said, I would try to be talking to my mom, and my mom would be yelling over me. I'm on the phone. I start to talk, and my mom would talk over me and yell over me. No, you little bitch. And then that's when I would feel the urge to yell at her, like, fuck you, and start yelling at her. But that's when I start to really realize I'm not really the problem. It's she doesn't let me talk. She is, she has a contempt for me, and a hatred, and it stems back to the high school with the basketball stuff. And like I said, she said, when I tried to tell her for the first time in 2013, I figured out it was a shooting machine. She said, no, it wasn't a shooting machine. It was because you were playing against. It was because you were under too much pressure, and you lost it. You couldn't handle the pressure, and you fell apart, and you started becoming mentally ill. So again, this is contempt for me. She has a hatred for me, and she has like it really is a dehumanization, but basically it's a contempt for me. So at that point, I started trying to talk to my. I'm trying to ask my mom, can you give me a place to stay? But like I said, then I went to my grandma's house. Then the crazy stuff happened where my dad chased me out of the house. We ran down the hill. They tried to call the police on me. Then the police took me to the psych ward because my parents were saying, you need to take him to the psych ward. But the police were like, we can't take him to the psych ward. He doesn't, he's not doing anything to show any signs of mental illness. Like, we can't take him to the psych ward. But then my parents were screaming and like having a fit. And then my parents' next door neighbor, who was a Jewish lady, I think that she was upset because at that time I'd become a right winger, right? So she starts screaming and like, you have to send him to the psych ward. He has a mental illness. You guys don't realize it. And then so they're like, and so I finally told them, okay, just send me to the psych ward to get them, So I told them I'll talk to the doctor, have the doctor tell them to stop trying to force me to take medicine. So they take me to the psych ward, but I go to to try to get into the behavior unit, but they give me the interview, and the people at the psych ward said, you don't have any symptoms of mental illness. We can't let you in the psych ward. And then I was like, what? And then they said, are you suicidal? And I was like, no. They're like, well, do you have, and they asked me these questions, and I was like, no, I don't have any of those symptoms. And they're like, okay, well, we can't let you in. So then I call my mom and dad, and I'm like, I call my grandpa and grandma, but my grandpa won't answer the phone anymore. Cause like I said, I was staying with him for a little bit, but then he kicked me out because he was telling me, and this was the thing, like I was saying, Dad, Grandpa, Mom and Dad will give me a place to stay. They'll give me a car, but they're saying I need to take medicine. And my grandpa's like, yep, exactly. This is what happens if you're not independent. If you're dependent, then you can't have ally enemy software. This is why you need to get a job so you can become independent, so you don't have ally enemy software. And because if you're independent, then if your parents do what you want to do, then you'll have ally software. And if they don't, then you'll have enemy software, and you'll be angry, and that's self-confirmatory. So, that is that type of thing. So then I started getting angry at my grandpa. I was like, Grandpa, you're the one who's the problem, because, if it wasn't for your thing about no talking about the past and all your metapsychiatry stuff that you gave to my mom and dad, first off, he even admits that there's times when you could talk about the past, and he admitted that my mom and dad were exhibiting predator prey software and not being mature. But I was like, if you weren't doing this stuff, this whole independent stuff, and then my mom and dad would be talking to me, and they would be seeing me. The reason why they're not talking to me is because they think that they're trying to force me to be independent and stuff. And they're getting this stuff from you and not talking about the past. They got that from you. And then my grandpa's like, no. And then we got in a fight. We got in an argument about that. And then he kicked me out of his place. And then so I was like, this is all stemming. All the problems really stem from when my grandpa came in high school. And my grandpa was like, oh, what Ryan really wants is independence. And no talking about what Ryan really wants is independence. And that's not what I wanted. I just needed help fixing my shot. Like I said, if it wasn't for the shoot-away machine, none of this stuff would have happened. I would have been great with the basketball. I was doing great. Everything was perfect. I was automatically aligned to what was perfect. I can go into details. I can show you the videos exactly what happened with the shooting machine, exactly how it distorted my shot, exactly when it happened. and all that. So so my grandpa's saying, so I tried to call my grandpa, but he won't answer the phone. And so I tried to call my grandma, and then my grandma was like, okay, your mom said that she will give you a hotel to stay or a hotel to stay at, but you have to agree to eventually take medicine. So I was like, okay, I'll stay at the hotel, but I'm not going to be taking medicine. They're like, okay, so we'll give you a hotel to stay in for a little bit. So I go to the hotel. My grandma sends her cleaning lady with her gardener in the back seat to stop me if I do anything crazy. No, my grandma's friend, who was a Jewish lady who lived next door, she had a cleaning lady. Oh no, she was in this seat, and then the cleaning lady was driving, and then in the back seat was the gardener to beat me up just in case I did anything crazy. I just wanted to get to a freaking hotel. So they're driving me to a hotel. Like, they think that I'm crazy. They think that I have a mental illness. I didn't even have a mental illness. So they took me to a hotel. And so then when I'm at the hotel, they gave me like a little, because I couldn't use my regular phone at this time because my mom had turned off my phone. So they gave me a little tiny phone that I could use for the time being. So I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, can you give me a place to stay? And my mom was like, okay, well, we worked out a deal. There's a person who, my friend, his son, who has a mental illness. He's staying in a house somewhere, blah, blah, blah. And he's taking medicine. Now, if you can stay but he doesn't have a driver's license, so you will drive him around. But if, you have to agree, if you're going to stay in the house with him, that you will take medicine. And if you take medicine, I will give you this place to stay, and you can stay with this guy. But you will have to drive him around, and that's the only deal with it. And I was like, Mom, I'm not going to take medicine. And my mom's like, well, you're not going to have a place to stay then. You're going to be living on the streets. And I was like, Mom, the doctor said I don't have a mental illness. And then so my mom, she's screaming at me. She, again, talking over me, not letting me speak, talking down to me, calling me names, cussing at me. So then I finally tell my mom, hey, Mom, when I was at Grandma's house, which I did, I made videos. And in the videos, I described how you and Dad beat me up in high school. And this was the first time I ever put videos up on Facebook describing all this stuff. And I was like, I described about the shooting machine and what happened. And then my mom was like, I fucking hate you. You fucking loser. I fucking hate you. And she's screaming at me. And then she's like, I hope you die. Why don't you just kill yourself? Please, just kill yourself. So I was like, Mom, just give me a place. Just please help me out. Just give me a place to stay. And she's like, no, I want you out of my life. I want you completely out of my life. I want you to be independent. And this is what I'm trying to say, that it's my grandpa's fault from the beginning, because my grandpa was the one who was like, Ryan really wants independence. What he really needs is independence. No, I needed help. I needed some support. I discovered the theory of everything. I needed help and support. And I wanted to talk to my mom and dad about the past, about the shooting machine. I didn't want to be independent. I wanted to talk. I wanted to not be independent. But they misinterpreted what he was saying by independent. He was saying that he wanted me to get a job, but he still wanted them to talk to me and be, normal, compassionate, decent parents. But they didn't understand that. So my mom was like, I just want you out of my life. I want you independent. I don't want anything to do with you. And then she was like, fuck you. I hate you. Please just kill yourself. Please kill yourself. Please. And then, she's hysterical. She's freaking crazy. So then she hangs up. So then I didn't have a place to stay at the hotel because she stopped paying for the hotel. So then I walk all the way back to my grandma's house, and I tried to get into my grandma's house. I knock on the door, but then my mom and dad come, and then my mom and dad are there with me at my grandma's house. We're outside at the street, and they had called the police. They're like, the police are coming. So I'm standing out there with my mom and dad, and then I remember a family walked by. And then I asked the family, can I use your cell phone? And the lady and the mom, the girl and the mom was like, sure. And they gave me the cell phone. My mom was like, aren't you guys scared of him? Isn't he? He's a creep. Like, he's crazy. Like, my mom, in her eyes, like I'm some insane schizophrenic weirdo who's a freako or something. So, and then they're like, no, we're not really afraid of him. Like, and then my dad was like, Ryan, just take medicine. It will stop your racing thoughts. And I looked at my dad, I was like, I don't have racing thoughts. So he had looked up the symptoms of bipolar disorder. He thought I had bipolar disorder. He thought I had racing thoughts. And I had, when I was in, like I said, when I was at San Diego, I had, I was with this guy who was a Jewish guy. When I was staying in the library, I met this Jewish guy. His name was Bucky or something. And his dad was like the famous interviewer of Einstein or something. And he had given me the MBTI, or not the MBTI, the MMPI test. And he had told me the questions and stuff. And he told me like, yeah, you don't have the disease. And he said that one of the questions is like, do you have racing thoughts? And I was like, no. And he was like, yeah, you don't have bipolar, you don't have schizophrenia. But my dad was like, Ryan, just take the medicine. It will stop your racing thoughts. He thinks because I rap and stuff, I have racing thoughts. No, I can only rap when I'm playing basketball, when I'm nervous and stuff. So no, I don't have racing thoughts. I don't have any symptoms of a mental illness. So I was like, Dad, I don't have racing thoughts. And then my dad was like, and then, but at the time I had a twitch because I was nervous. And then my dad started making fun of me, mimicking my twitch. And my mom was like, my mom was laughing like, Paul, stop that. That's mean, Paul. And then like, there is like so freaking crazy. Like looking at it, I'm like, it's so crazy how freaking abusive this whole situation was. Starting from high school, the emotional, the terrible abuse that I faced. And it was all, and like I said, none of it would have happened if it wasn't for the shoot away machine. I would have been perfect with it. They would have been loving me. Everything would have been great if it wasn't for the shoot away machine. I honestly know that. So, so then I was like, fine, I'm going to leave. You don't have to call the police. I'm just going to leave. So then I left. And my dad was like, oh, good luck in the killer streets of LA. You're going to need it. So then I'm walking, and I was going to go to sleep in a park. But I was about to fully go to sleep, and I remember there was a big spider that walked by, and I was like, well, I'm not going to freaking sleep in this park because I don't want to get bitten by a freaking spider while I'm sleeping. So I just kept walking, and I finally went to a house where and I just like and I knocked on no, there were people standing outside, and I said, hey, guys, can you guys call the police? I'm suicidal. But I wasn't really suicidal. I thought to myself, remember the psych ward wouldn't let me in the first time. And they said, well, are you suicidal? Well, if you're not suicidal, we can't let you in. So I thought, if I tell them I'm suicidal, they're going to let me in. Now, that was a mistake. And they put me on 5150. But I only said I was suicidal so that they would let me into psych ward because I wanted to talk to the doctor. So because I was like, I'm going to have the doctor talk to my parents and tell them to stop trying to force me to take medicine because I don't have a mental illness. Now, this is the next part of the story I'll get to.